learning how to get around a design through scrolling and just panning through is very important, and we've touched on it a little bit in previous video in this section of getting around the software, but I want to go a little bit deeper in it. So I have this design open on the screen, and when we're talking about scrolling, we're talking about getting around design. Like if I make this really large on the screen, it's how to get from one area to the other. And so in this video we're just going to talk about those different things. So around your design page you have these arrows, left, right, and you have up and down. You can click them to scroll through a design. Personally, I rarely do that. I do it sometimes, but I like to use the arrow keys on my keyboard. So if you have arrow keys, all you have to do is press up to scroll up, press down to scroll down, to the left, to the right. It just is very easy to do. I can stay focused on whatever I'm doing and just click the arrows. So that is probably my favorite way to do it if I'm zoomed in, is just doing that. The other way that you can do it to get around in a design is click on the pan tool, and the way that I access the pan tool is I click on the space bar, and you'll notice that my icon as I hit the space bar changes from this selection tool to a hand, and that means now I can just click anywhere on the screen and drag any direction and the design's going to move. It's not moving a specific object, it's moving the design page. Okay, so you don't have to worry about moving an object, because if that hand is showing, nothing is selected. Okay, you're just grabbing the design page and moving it. To turn it off, you can hit on the selection tool and it goes away. But one thing to keep in mind is it's going to display over here as a pan tool instead of the zoom tool. So it's just something that if you go looking for the zoom tool and you don't see it, instead you see a hand, that's why. But at the same time, in the floating toolbar you do have the magnifying glass, and so if you're in the pan tool and you've panned around, if you click on the magnifying glass, it'll change there as well. So pan tool is actually really nice. I utilize it some to go around a design to find the area that I want. Sometimes it's just faster than using the arrow keys, and it's easy to get in and out of because all you have to do is hit the space bar on your keyboard. So the other ways to move it around we did talk about in a previous video is the navigator. Navigator is a pretty cool tool. To get to it, we go to the view and we go to navigator, and it shows you the box of the area that's selected. So watch as I scroll this wheel back and forth. You can see everything that's in this box is showing. Okay, so if I go in smaller, I can go in larger with the design. I can move this box around. If I get it to the size I want, I can just move it around. It's kind of a nice little feature. It's turned off by default, but you can access it again by just going to view, navigator. Navigator can be very, very helpful. So the other way that you can scroll a design is using the mouse wheel. If your mouse has a wheel on it, you can zoom in and out. Now I work from a Mac computer, but I use a regular mouse, and the reason that I do is if I use the mouse that comes with the Apple computer, it doesn't have a wheel and you just scroll your fingers, but it goes so fast, so it just doesn't work well with that, and I like to use the scroll wheel. So I actually use a regular mouse on my Mac computer because it drives me crazy. I accidentally would zoom in and out constantly in a design when I was using that mouse. So just a tip to any of you out there that use a Mac, you might want to consider getting a regular mouse. If you do look at getting a Mac at some point and loading Windows on it with parallels, I highly recommend that you get a regular mouse. And So that's the normal scrolling that you can do, is using the arrow keys, using the scroll wheel on your mouse. I'm just going in and out, and wherever the mouse pointer is located is where it's going to zoom in and out of. So that's kind of a way of scrolling, and panning is doing that. And I also use the pan tool. That's the hand there, but how I access it is a space bar, or you can click it and you can drag around. If I click the space bar, it will turn it on and off. Good little keyboard shortcut. And so those are the basic ways. Now we need to go into the preferences so you can see another option here. This is something that obviously was requested quite often. It's not something that I personally prefer, but it depends on what I'm doing too. If I'm using like a touch monitor, or if I'm using a keyboard shortcut tool that I use where I'm not really using, you know, the regular keyboard much, there'll be a video about that later. I might go into the auto scrolling, and auto scrolling means it will automatically scroll as you get close to the edge, and you can control slow, medium speed, or fast. So I have this enabled. I'm going to come in here, and how it kind of works is when you're creating something and you get close to the edge, if I hold it, it'll just automatically scroll. See how that works? So it'll automatically scroll when I get close to an edge. And so as you're digitizing something you're zoomed in, it can be kind of handy, but to me it pauses a little bit. So I prefer, as I'm doing it, I'll just hit the arrow key, you know, up, down, left, right, and that's just a personal preference of mine. But auto scrolling is there. It is an option. A lot of people like it. There are times when I'll use it. It's just not something I have turned on very much. Feel free to, though. I'm not saying it's not useful or not good, just not a personal preference of mine. So again, that was under preferences, which you can access here, or tools, preferences, and it's in the environment tab. Enable auto scrolling has to be checked to have it automatically do that. I'm going to turn it back off because I don't prefer it, and then hit OK. And we will get into, in other videos, we'll get into the program preferences, but that's the different options you have for scrolling in the software, or panning, or moving the design page around. And so I hope that's helpful. Hopefully you got something from it and you'll be able to utilize those different options.